Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us. I'm Dr. Chantal Barriault, and I'm a Bluecoat Emeritus at Science North. I'm also the director of the program of the Science Communication Master's degree at Laurentian University that we offer with Science North. And I'm really excited today to be hosting Bluecoat Talks. Our topic is going to be very interesting, and we have really fantastic people joining us today for these Bluecoat Talks on COVID-19 vaccines and vaccine development. So the first person I'll introduce is Dr. Paulo Monteiro. So Paulo joins us from Sudbury, where he is currently as a scientist in residence at Science North, but he is the director of post-secondary education at Butantan Institute and also a researcher there in Sao Paulo. That's where Butantan Institute is. And also Dr. Alex Precioso, which means precious, I hear. So Alex is joining us as the Director of Pharmacovigilance and Clinical Safety, as well as Risk Management Center at Butantan Institute. So welcome, everyone, and this is very exciting.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hello, Chantal. Hello, Alex. It's a pleasure to meet you.
So we're going to have a conversation today. So it's not really a formal interview for our viewers to know. I'm going to start with a few questions, but you are more than welcome to ask some questions in the Facebook chat, and our moderator will forward those along to me if we have time for the whole. We do have an hour here, so I'm hoping to get to some of your questions. But I'll start off with perhaps the most curious question that we have. And it's really about how on earth are vaccines developed in the first place? I mean, we are in a global pandemic with COVID-19, and many people are really hoping that the vaccine is really our way out of this, like that a COVID-19 vaccine will be our way out of a global pandemic. So before getting into the details about the COVID vaccine in particular, I wondered if you could just, I don't know how quickly you could do this, Alex, but give us a glimpse into how vaccines are actually developed.
Okay. Well, vaccine development is in fact a long process, and usually it takes many years. But basically, we divide the vaccine development process in two parts. The first part we call as a preclinical stage, which means that a lot of laboratory evaluation of the vaccine is performed. And basically we need to have some safety data. And for that, usually we work with lab assays and sometimes with animals as well. The second part of the program, it's called the clinical stage of the vaccine development. In that clinical stage, we are talking about basically 3 phases before the vaccine can be licensed. Phase 1 is the very first moment that we will evaluate the vaccine in humans. So we recruit a few number of participants to evaluate the safety of the vaccine. In phase 2, the next step, we usually recruit a little bit more of participants, and our major goal is to keep monitoring the safety of the vaccine, but also to evaluate the immune response against the vaccine, meaning what the vaccine causes in your body in terms of immunological stimulation. And the third phase before the vaccine can be licensed is the phase 3, where we need to recruit thousands of participants in order to demonstrate efficacy. In other words, is the last step that we need to really have a very good picture about the safety of the product, but also demonstrate that the immune response that the body develops really protects you against the disease.
So it sounds very complex. So there's many stages and many phases. Can I just reiterate or ask you to repeat the first? So there's 2 stages, and the first stage has nothing to do with humans or anything like that. So the first stage, you're just literally quite developing something in the lab, correct?
Correct. We call the preclinical stage. So the basic research, along with eventually some laboratory and animal evaluation are needed in order to see if the candidate should go ahead and be tested in humans.
So what is the candidate? Like what is the candidate sort of molecule or enzyme? I don't even know. What's a good candidate for a vaccine?
Yes, in general, we use the term antigen. Antigen is the active principle of the product. Can be a molecule, part of a virus or bacteria, or a recombinant protein that somehow will be able to stimulate your immune system to produce a protection against the disease you are evaluating.
So you're trying to find that first in the lab. You're trying to understand what molecule could serve as a good antigen. So
Exactly.
whether that's a bacteria, a virus, like you said, or a protein or something that would be a good candidate to induce an immune response against the virus that you're trying to beat.
Correct, exactly.
Okay. And how do you determine if that antigen is like a potential candidate? Like what does it do?
Mm-hmm. First of all, I would say that we need to know about the pathogen and also about the disease the pathogen causes in your body, because you need to understand what are the body reactions and what really cause you some symptoms in order to identify the perfect molecule or antigen. And once you know about the disease, you also will have some clues regarding that particle being able or not to really stimulate your immune system as the white virus or white bacteria.
So we keep saying triggering our immune system or having some kind of effect on our immune system. What effect does our immune system, like what will it do when encountering a potential vaccine or an antigen?
Well, overall, the molecule, the antigen, stimulate your immune cells. Okay. And some cells are able to produce antibodies, which are proteins that somehow will neutralize the virus or the bacteria once they enter into your body. And the second part of the immune system are called as specific memory cells, which are cells that eventually in the future, if you get in touch or encounter the microorganism again, your body will be promptly ready to respond and prevent you from the infection. So basically the immune system produces proteins, which are antibodies, and or stimulate specific cells will keep the memory to fight against the infection in the future.
That's fascinating. So like a memory, literally our body will produce a protection that allows our cells to remember
Exactly.
how to fight a certain virus or a certain bacteria.
Exactly.
Well, that is really, really fascinating. So you're in these clinical, well, this was my next question, and I am going to get to some of the questions that our audience is asking, but what phase are we at, or what stage are we at? And I know that there's many trials going on around the world, and our visitors are sorry, I'm used to saying visitors as a blue coat. Our viewers and listeners are probably aware that there's vaccines being developed all over the world right now. I actually think I heard that there's over 125 different places that are developing different vaccines. And so I know that you're doing this in Butantan, which is where you are, Alex. And so if you could tell me or tell us and our viewers a little bit about what phase are we at, and what phase are you at in Butantan? And then I guess my follow-up to that would be, why are there 125 that are being developed?
Well, first, what I think the most interesting, and this is unprecedented, we are talking from January up to now for vaccine development. So we have like 7-8 months of vaccine development. And this is really a short period for that amount of candidate vaccines that are already on trials. To give you an example, we have over than 135 vaccine candidates for COVID-19. And among them, around 30 are already in the clinical stage, which means they are either in phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3. And in phase 3, which is the last step before licensing, we have already 8 vaccines.
Wow,
And
there's eight vaccines there, really,
yes,
that are
and
in phase 3.
surprisingly, we have already 2 vaccines licensed, which is unbelievable. If you considering January up to August, what usually a vaccine development takes is like anytime between 8 to 15 years. We have like in 8 months already 2 vaccines licensed. And
Wow.
hundreds of them being evaluated. At Butantan particularly, we are working with a specific platform for vaccine development, which is an inactivated vaccine.
Okay.
The vaccine that we have part of the COVID-19 virus, isolated,
right,
modified, and inactivated, like kind of dead virus particles.
So that's the technology that Butantan is using. You're using an inactive form of the COVID-19 virus itself.
Exactly.
So when you say inactive, is it like maybe the virus is like it's dead, or you've removed the parts of it that could infect people?
Yeah, inactivated vaccine is exactly that. The virus is dead,
okay,
but it's capable of stimulating your immune system, which means that it's not supposed to cause you the disease, but stimulate your immune system to make you be protect against the disease.
So even if the virus is dead, it's still okay, right? It's still good enough. There's still enough information in the virus for your system to produce an immune response to it.
Yeah, that means that the virus cannot replicate inside your body, but still there are proteins or specific antigens, epitopes, that is active in a way to stimulate your immune system.
There's already questions coming up on that from viewers saying, like, we are in a really big rush here, and you just said that it takes typically between 8 and 15 years to develop a vaccine, and yet we're at 8 months, and you say there's already 2 licenses. So have we rushed this? Like, have we, and is there concerns for vaccine safety?
Mm-hmm. Well, every situation like this, I mean, a pandemic situation, we do need to identify strategies to advance the vaccine development. However, without forgetting to follow the good clinical practices in order to have a vaccine license, which means there are room for speed up the process, but definitely that doesn't mean that the safety evaluation or the efficacy evaluation should be modified just because you need a vaccine right away. So there are procedures that can be sped up without compromising the safety and the efficacy evaluation of the vaccine. And I hope, and I do believe, that the majority of the vaccines that are on trial right now are really pay attention on how to monitor the safety and prove the efficacy in a way that once the vaccine is licensed, it is a safe product for the society. But of course, in this situation, we will need to keep our work even after the licensure, which means that we will be keeping monitoring the safety and the effectiveness of the vaccine. So it's just a program that start before the license ensure period, but we'll definitely need to keep going after the vaccine is licensed.
So, and Paulo, please jump in if you
Yes.
have anything to add, because this is also really close to your heart and what you do in terms of a researcher and communicating and understanding health communication so that people understand what we're up to. So please jump in.
I'd like to add something, Chantal, if I can.
Sure, yeah.
And, the point that Alex stressed, that even after the vaccine is licensed, there is a big process, a very important process, named exactly that Alex do in Butantan, is pharmacovigilance, which means all side effects or things that happen when even after the vaccine is licensed has to be monitoring. There is a strong surveillance system that monitoring this kind of effects. This is one myth in vaccination, I think, because people can understand that after license, everything is done. There is no things to do if some side effects happen. It's not true. We have to show people that even after that, vaccines are monitoring the side effects, the efficacy, and this kind of things starts just in the beginning of the process.
Okay. Well, that brings me to, and again, I'm monitoring the chat to see what some of the audience wants to know, and it was a question that I wanted to know. Now, you've mentioned, Alex, safety and efficacy, and how we're monitoring that, and how that's really part of phase 2 and phase 3. Well, the whole time you're looking at that. What do you mean? Like, can you clarify for the audience? Like, what do you mean? I know we know what safety is, but in terms of a vaccine, how do you monitor safety and how do you monitor the effectiveness of it?
Okay, well, for safety, basically, we need to monitor what the vaccine causes locally where the injection is done, right? Because we need to see, for example, if your body has some local reactions like redness or pain, things like that, that eventually could not be suitable for a vaccine, but also systemic events. If you have fever, if you have pain, if you have joint problems or muscle aches and things like this. So those are the symptoms that we need to monitor once you get the vaccine, which we combine in a safety evaluation of the vaccine. Local and systemic adverse events or adverse reactions because of the vaccine. Efficacy is the method, is the procedure that we will demonstrate that among who received the vaccine compared to those who didn't receive the vaccine, the number of the disease cases occur predominantly among those who didn't get the vaccine. Okay, so usually in an efficacy trial, we have participants that some of them get the real vaccine and some got what we call placebo, which is not the vaccine. Right. At the end, we compare where the majority of the disease happened, either among the vaccinees or the placebo recipients. And once the cases occur predominantly among the placebo recipients, we demonstrate that the vaccine was already effective, protected against the disease.
And it seems to the disease, to the virus, to see if it's effective or not. So do we do that like automatically? Like, or like do people get exposed purposely? Like, do you put the vaccinated people in a room and expose them to the virus? I'm sure that's not the case. So if you could explain that, that would help.
Yeah, no, in fact, what happened is we have the volunteers coming to the clinics, they get the vaccine or placebo, and they go back to their ordinary lives and are naturally exposed to whatever the microorganisms you are trying to prevent is circulating. So that's why every efficacy trial, it's important to happen in an area where the virus or bacteria is circulating. Because once the person is vaccinated, you can only demonstrate efficacy if the person gets in touch with the virus and don't get the disease. So it's fundamental that the epidemiological environment is also suitable for the efficacy trial. Otherwise, you have people vaccinate, but you don't have the agent circulate, so you'll never be able to demonstrate efficacy.
Like, for example, if you were to do a test of a vaccine in Sudbury, like currently, I think we only have one active case of COVID-19. So it would not make sense to do this trial, do these test trials in Sudbury, because there would not be enough exposure in the natural environment, correct?
Exactly, enough cases to demonstrate efficacy.
And that's, in the other hand, Chantal, is not, can I?
Yes.
In the other hand, it's not by chance that Brazil is testing how many, 3 or 4 phase 3 vaccines against COVID, because the epidemiological situations, we can say, it's not the good word, we can say it's a good situation for testing, because it's bad for people. Of course, it's terrible, it's a tragedy, but for the development of the vaccines is the ideal situation to test the efficacy.
Because there's a high number of cases in Brazil.
Yes,
yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, the virus is still circulating. It's a very active epidemiological environment in Brazil right now for vaccine efficacy trials. As Paulo said, not good for the society, but in terms of science, clinical trial is the kind of epidemiological environment that we need in order to demonstrate efficacy.
Okay. I have 2 questions from our audience. Abby Morris is asking, have the vaccine trials that have passed the clinical stages, right, where they're in phase 3 or have been licensed even, have they been tested on diverse populations? Because as she points out, there's consequences of considering how the virus seems to be disproportionately affecting people of color, for example. For a variety of social and perhaps genetic reasons. So can you speak to that, Alex?
Yeah, sure. Well, overall, when you are in this phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3 trial, you definitely should have participants from both genders, and of course include people from different races. That's the major recommendation. But regarding the age, for example, usually you license the vaccine among what we say health adult volunteers first. And after you have demonstrated the safety profile and also the efficacy, you might perform specific, I would say, sub-studies to target specific target groups, which means from different ages, and eventually, according to the vaccine that you are evaluating, you might include, for example, people with underlying chronic diseases or other diseases that they were not evaluated in the pre-licensure period, but you can do it later on.
So should we feel confident that the trials that are going on around the world, and maybe specifically to your institute, Alex, is that diverse populations were included in the trials, like in the clinical trials, to make sure that that we have different races and both genders or different genders and those sorts of things?
Exactly, that's what exactly is happening in our trial. We have people from both genders and different races. At this time, particularly, we are just recruiting adult people, but as I said, this is a regulatory and ethics recommendation that you should go for the youngest only after you gather enough safety and efficacy data. Of course, it might vary if you are talking about a vaccine that is a specific target for children, for example. In that cases, even during the pre-licensure period, you will recruit kids. Okay, that depends on the disease, the epidemiological data about it, but in general, now we are more focused on having people, adults from different genders and races.
So right now, that's the focus is on, we're testing primarily on healthy adults because we're going to target that. And then again, if that proves to be safe and effective, then you might go on to trials with more specific target populations that might be more at risk.
Yeah. And that may vary a little bit among the programs. For example, there are programs that are targeted, for example, only health professionals for immunization at this time. Other trials are already including different age. So it's a very dynamic process. Okay. Again, depends on the local epidemiological data, the kind of vaccine you are evaluating. Somehow, I believe those different programs in a way will be complementary to each other. Of course, when we are talking about the same vaccine platform, that will be able to share different data and experiences among the manufacturers that are working with the same vaccine and be complementary to each other.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. So that once there can be some collaboration at one point and doing that. So Jen Tremblay sent a question saying, audiences wanted to know that you did speak about potential long-term effects earlier on in our conversation. And I'm not sure if you were meaning long-term effects of the virus, like getting COVID-19, or long-term effects of the vaccine. Could you clarify that?
Sure. This is about the vaccine safety profile. And why? Because when you do a trial, for example, phase 3 trial, you need to recruit thousands of participants. And that sample really must be representative of a population. That's why you need a lot of people, okay?
Right.
And the other reason for that is when you have a lot of participants in the trial, you are more, let's say, capable of detecting, for example, potential rare adverse events. Because if you study just a small number of participants, you might miss those rare adverse events, okay? So that happens with all the vaccines.
Okay.
And as Paulo said, once the vaccine is licensed, we need to perform pharmacovigilance activities, which are a regulatory requirement, and means that we need to keep monitoring the safety of vaccine, not only to confirm the safety profile before the vaccine is licensed, but also to keep doing a work in order to eventually detect very rare adverse events, and that take times.
Right. So your work's not done once a vaccine is. Yeah, you got to continue with the monitoring of adverse effects, and that's what pharmacovigilance means, is that you're being vigilant, careful and on top of the pharmacological aspects of the potential side effects. Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And important also to highlight that this pharmacovigilance activity is not only about vaccine. That must happen to every medicine, every drug.
Yes, of course.
It's a regulatory requirement for vaccines and other drugs, medicines.
Right. More questions. People are active and they're throwing some questions at us. Once the global community is able to find a vaccine with promising results coming out of phase 3 trials, how long, and this is the $1 million question, I'm sure, how long do you think it could, this is the question, how long do you think it would take to distribute this to the broader population? Because it seems that the conversations that are going on in the popular media and social media is that we're not necessarily considering how long it takes to scale up production and make a plan to deploy everything, right? So, and then of course, following that, people are already asking about how many, like what's the percentage of the population that needs to be vaccinated in order to protect the community and all of this stuff. So let's start with like, and the first question we got off the top of the program was, when would Canada get one? so the $1 million questions that everybody wants to know, and it's 30 minutes into our conversation. So why don't we try to tackle that now?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex.
So it's a really difficult question to answer at this time, because one thing is to have the vaccine evaluated and licensed. The other thing is to be able to scale up production. Yeah. And the third step is, once you have a certain number of doses, have a local infrastructure to define what the target population should be at the very first moment. And after that, start thinking how to expand the immunization program. What I can tell you at the very first moment, it will be impossible to have very massive immunization everywhere. Of course, I hope the vaccine is really available to those who need the most at the first step. And after that, all the manufacturers being able to really scale up their production to offer more doses in a stepwise program, I would say. Okay, so which means in part, what I've seen, this is also really interesting, because in normal situation, manufacturer perform the clinical stage to confirm the safety and efficacy. And after those are confirmed, they really invest on production, scaling up. But what we are seeing right now is these two main activities going in parallel. So manufacturers are taking risk, meaning they are manufacturing a lot of vaccine already, even though they don't know yet if the vaccine will be really efficacious. So this is something really to, I would say, be able to make vaccine available as soon as possible. Of course, after it's been demonstrated they are safe and efficacious.
So the idea that part of this speeding up of the process includes, I guess, what you're talking about, Alex, right now, which is things are running in parallel. People, like manufacturers, are taking a chance to mass produce, even though we're not 100% confident in the one that they're producing, but they're going to take that chance just so that once it is, oh yeah, okay, it's good to go, green light, they've already started to scale up the production. They don't have to wait to scale it up. One of the things that I found interesting that you said is this localized approach to, localized approach, or like really central, every area will want to consider, or is probably going to have to consider, who gets the vaccine first. Mm-hmm. And I find that like really fascinating, like, because how do you do that? Right. And I don't know if Paulo or Alex, you want to, this is a really big question, but how do you do that? Like, who's the most at risk? Like, how do you determine that?
I think this is an example of multidisciplinary kind of endeavor, in terms of we do need epidemiologists, other professionals all together in order to monitor the epidemiological situation in a way to really follow what are the populations that are at higher risk at that time. Right. So epidemiologists are quite important, and also people that are focus their activity in immunization programs, and that all go along with the local political strategy, government strategy, I would say, to see in your population, in your environment, who are at the higher risk at this moment, and therefore they should be the first ones to be vaccinated, and after that you keep following to see how you expand your immunization strategy. So it's a multidisciplinary environment, and these different inputs are quite important to define who is the target population for a specific period of the time.
We've used the word epidemiologists, and I have a hard time saying it, epidemiology. If I'm not mistaken, I think epidemiology means studying the level of a disease in a community. Is that correct? Or is it more than that?
How the disease is in your community by time, local, and wherever. How it works in your
how the disease works in the community.
In a group.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say how it's the behavior, they study the behavior of the disease in a certain community in a specific perion of time.
To see how the disease is behaving.
Yes.
About the target groups, I would say that one logical first group will be the health workers. They are the most exposed people in COVID, and after that, of course, it's a local and a government decision, but the most vulnerable people, as elders or people who has chronic disease, should be. We don't know yet. Should be one of the first.
One of the priorities,
As Alex said, it's impossible provide vaccines for everybody at the same time, the first time of the year, and the governments, the politicians, and we hope based on scientific backgrounds, we will have to decide these groups, and the epidemiology is based on that. Is the main thing to decide that.
Right, and not fortunately, but fortunately for developing epidemiological studies, we've been able to see what the disease has done.
That's it.
So far, and our experience certainly in Canada and other parts of the world has been the elderly population, our retirement homes, our old age homes, and the vulnerable. But of course, we've also seen the opposite of young, healthy people also succumbing. So,
but I didn't say that for young, for kids is not important, but we have to decide. People have to decide what will be the first.
Right.
Vaccination is important for everybody.
It's important for everybody, but you have to, like you said, you can't do everybody at once. So you're going to have to make some decisions, right? There's a few questions I haven't gotten to yet, and I'm looking at the time, and I realize we only have about, 10 or 15 minutes, and Renata can let me know, our moderator can let me know. We didn't really tackle the issue of what's the percentage of immunity, or what's the percentage of people that we need to vaccinate in order to have a protected community. And, maybe that helps us motivate people to do it or to get the vaccine, but I don't know if you can answer that, Alex or Paulo, have a go.
Well, that I would say it's another 1 million question. For
$1 million question again?
Yeah. Because, what we are talking about is what we heard as a herd immunity, okay? Which means is once you have a certain percentage of the population already infected or vaccinated, the other part of the population will be protected. Somehow.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So, but that varies also according to the microorganism you were talking about.
It depends on the virus or the bacteria, because it depends on how strong those are.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It depends, because there are some viruses that if eventually like 20% or sorry, my dog's
your dog's barking.
Likes to participate in the meetings. This is the home office era, right? So we need to get used to it.
Yes.
But anyway, so there are certain viruses, for example, if you have 20% of the population already infected, maybe that virus will not be able to find naive people to replicate and keep the virus, replicating and spreading to other people. But there are other microorganisms, maybe you need to 30-40% of protection. So
I see.
It varies.
Okay.
And again, with COVID-19, we still are learning a lot. This is a new virus, a new situation. What we know from the past regarding other viruses and bacteria may be also, applicable or suitable for this time, but maybe it's not.
Okay. So it's really hard to tell exactly what the percentage is that you need for sort of herd immunity, or not herd, but for the community to be safe, because it depends on the virus itself and how it mutates, how it finds a host, and all of those kinds of things.
If I may say, we have this expression here that we have a flat tire, but we need to keep the car moving. So you need to change your flat tire, but still you cannot stop to do it. You need to do all the same time.
Wow, that is a really visual picture of the challenges that you're facing. Exactly. Changing a flat tire while you're still moving. That is a good piece of science communication, Alex. I really, that's really, really good. We'll make you an honorary blue coat for that. We're going to make him an honorary blue coat just for that. I have Jen Tremblay asked another question that I think we should address, or we can address, is that when you're working on a vaccine, it's not one person. Like I keep saying, you are working on a vaccine, Alex, but it's not just you. Huge. So can you speak a little bit about that, the collaboration and working with different organizations to, this is the part of science that people don't necessarily see. Right?
So partnership is crucial. Partnership in these situations, not only in this pandemic situation, but for any innovative program or vaccine development is crucial. Okay, because there are people that will be focused on, trying to identify the molecule, the protein, followed by those people that are evaluating the potential molecule in the preclinical stage, other teams that will be focused on the clinical evaluation of the vaccine, other team that will be focused on manufacturing of the vaccine, groups that will be focused on the evaluation of monitoring the safety. So when you put all these people together, you are talking about thousands of people working with the same goal. And not only that, but also you need to consider all the regulatory team, the ethical team, and when you are doing something,
the communication team,
the communication team.
That's
exactly. Well, communication team, I would say, is one of the most important at this time, because we are trying to give to pass positive news to society, saying that we will have a vaccine and we hope the vaccine will be coming soon. However, we need to be careful, because once you may, at the same time you are passing a positive message, you need to pay attention if you are not making people be more concerned about the speed up and everything that we talked previously. Instead of being really, relaxed and comfortable, and with the fact that a vaccine may be available soon. So, Paulo, thank you. Communication is really a key and important.
It's a point that I'd like to address, this kind of race that we are living in COVID-19 vaccines. We have to be concerned about the communication, how to communicate that, because it's a uncertainty, a lot of uncertainty in this process, going back and going forward. And science is made by that. That's important. I think it's a good way to communicate how science is doing. How we are living the life science in our every day. We go back, we go forward. We have to learn. We have to be comfortable to say, I don't know yet about the things, but communicators have a big challenge to debunk these myths against vaccinations and diseases. And this is for me, as my field, this is a very unique moment for communication. Yes. And how to communicate in a good way in this moment full of uncertainties. It's a challenge to me. It's a challenge.
Yes, it's a very big challenge.
We have to think and to work together to address this challenge in a good way.
Michelle, one of our viewers, Michelle, is also saying, people are watching this. As you said, Paulo, people are watching this real-time science happen.
That's
like it's happening right now. We are and it's the process of science that we're witnessing, and we don't necessarily tend to see the process of science. We see the end product.
You see only the results.
The results, and a lot of people think of science as just it's facts. It's just, here you go, here's some knowledge. When in fact, science is this process. And like you said, it's back and forth and back and forth.
We can say about the masks in the very beginning of this pandemic. Masks didn't make some rules as well as nowadays.
Yeah, like the masks at the beginning weren't mandated, and now they are. People are getting
some. It's part of the game, but it's a very challenging moment for communicators. I'm sure about that, and we have to take this chance to develop and to show how science is, in fact, not only facts and only closed things. Science is a process.
It's a process.
Right now, a very good moment, a very unique moment to talk about that for society, in society, as a society.
As a society, and and maybe, how do we, because a lot of people that are watching us right now are, they're in their homes, they're with their kids, their families, they might be young adults or even grandparents, and they're probably concerned. And if you had, so there's two, I think I want to ask two questions as we near the end here. One is a vaccine actually what's going to get us out of the pandemic? And then two, my second question would be, do you have some advice to families that are listening and to our audience about how to navigate all of this information that's coming in? So maybe, Alex, we can start with you. Do you think that is the vaccine going to get us out of this pandemic?
I believe the vaccine is going to be one of the most important strategy to help us to get out of this situation, but definitely is not a vaccine that will completely solve the problem. Okay. Again, probably the most important public health initiative to get us out of the situation, which means that other procedures and things will need to be keep doing in order to protect yourself. Okay. So, and the second point is, I think, as we were talking about communication, I would like to add to that we also must start thinking that everything that is going on right now, I would consider as a multi or co-responsibility situation. What I mean with that? So we scientists have our responsibility, our goals, and our strategy, but I don't think is a situation that we are here just to say what people or society should do or should not. We also need society participate in our decision mechanisms and sharing the responsibility for initiative that you might take, which means that right now, society, scientists, regulators, politicians should all be together discussing the issue and trying to come up with a common, recommendation that will be benefiting all of us. So I would say, I would suggest to society, every time that you read something, first, be sure that go and get more information about the source of the information that you are getting. Okay, discuss with others, not just go and believe in the first thing that you read. And again, think that you, the scientists, the politicians, are all together and are responsible for the situation. That would be my final words.
I want to just echo that a little bit in terms of this idea that we're all like, we are society. Scientists are part of society, you know, and the politicians are part of society. And we tend to use like the us and them and they are working on it. It's like, no, we are like, and we, you know, let's do our part to support this and to be better informed and to, you know, to have the conversations that we need to have and you know, get out of it together sort of thing. I'm not sure, and I'm going to be devil's advocate. Paulo, I know you want to step in, but
yes,
Alex, I don't know if we got a clear answer. Is the vaccine our way out of a pandemic? Let me try to paraphrase. I think you said that it's the best strategy we have to get out of the pandemic, but it's not the only strategy.
Correct. It's not the only strategy. And also, I mean that once the vaccine is available, doesn't mean that COVID-19 will completely disappear. Okay?
Right.
So vaccine will really help us a lot to be in a more good environment to handle with the COVID-19. But the vaccine doesn't mean disappearance of COVID-19.
Okay. Paulo, I'm going to give you a chance to talk now.
No, I just say that, as you said, Chantal, everybody's in the same group. Everybody belongs with the same team. And we scientists and we science communicators tend to blame people and my advice is, as Alex said, looking for another source. Talk with people, because people now is very anxious for answers. People are looking for our answers very, very, because it's normal, and we don't want to blame people to looking for everything in internet or whatever, in groups or Facebook groups or Twitter groups. And my advice as a communicator, as a educator, is looking for the second source, going to talk with people, talk with people you trust, and because everybody wants to go out of this together.
Yeah.
Not ours on we and them. No, we on them, whatever.
It's
everybody
together. Yeah.
Out of this in the same time, and it's very challenging. It's a very challenging time for communicate because it's very.
On the other hand, I'm sorry, but on the other hand, I think it's a very good environment and opportunity to really improve our communication in science with the society. And I would say it's the right time to really come up with ideas how we translate or how we change the way science is being shared with the society in a way that is more, you know, it's easier to understand, or at least it's easier for the society to understand how important they are also as, you know, active participants in this process.
That it's not us and them, that it's together. And I think we tend to forget that, I mean, it's going to sound really simplistic to say this, but, you know, we say science and society, and it's like, you know what? It's science in society. They're not separate. Like science is in society. Scientists are people.
But as Alex said, Chantal, is a good moment to do a good science communication. We have to train people. We have to be concerned about how to communicate science, because it's not easy. It's not facts. Talking about facts or numbers or whatever. We have to understand our audiences as most of everything, their values, their beliefs, and their they are whatever.
How to bring them in.
Yes, background and knowledge, previous knowledge to design good strategies to communication.
Okay, I think I need to end it in like 2 minutes.
Okay.
I just want to see one question we really didn't get to, and I know we're not sure, but is there as a timeline-ish? Like Alex, like you said, it's, we're 8 months and we're doing clinical trials. We're in phase 3. Two of them are licensed. Is there a time that you think that a vaccine will come, that will be available to the vulnerable populations perhaps to start, but like in Canada as an example? Is it January? Is it January 2022? Is it January 2021? Like how far out do you think we are?
Well, again, another difficult question, but this is my opinion. I do believe by the middle of next year, 2020.
The middle of next year.
I think we'll be in a more positive kind of scenario with vaccine already being used for specific target groups and in specific regions of the world.
So when we say middle of next year, so maybe June 2021.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because now that the trials are about to really get the data they need, so you need a little time to analyze the data, to go over the regulatory procedures, to have the vaccine really available and start the immunization. So we might have data soon, but again, to have the data doesn't mean the vaccine be available immediately to the population. That's why I believe maybe in the middle of next year, June or July, will be the time that we will see really vaccine and being used by people.
Well, the second thing I want to say is just a really, really big thank you. Thank you so much to all of our listeners that are and our viewers that are on our Facebook pages. Thank you so much to everyone for sending in some really fantastic questions. And thank you so much, Dr. Alex Precioso. There we go, Dr. Precious, and Dr. Paulo Monteiro for really taking this very, very seriously, but yet very approachable way of engaging our audience to really ask some hard questions and to answer some really, really hard questions. I know you don't have a crystal ball, Alex. I know that. And if you did, you'd probably be a multimillionaire. But thank you for taking time out of your really busy day, as I can imagine, as the director of what's going on in Butantan in developing a vaccine right now for COVID-19. We really appreciate you taking the time. And thanks to Paulo for introducing us as our scientist in residence. Thanks for introducing us to Alex. And thanks again to everyone. And hopefully we'll be able to do this again, maybe when we do have one coming out, maybe next year.
Yes, good idea.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
Everyone.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.